So, Tartaglia's got a new banner coming out. Again. And you're like, should I pull for Tartaglia? Well, that's the point of this video. I'm gonna hopefully help you make a decision on that before the banner comes out. To be fair, this video is only like barely a week at a time, but Tartaglia is a character that I love a lot, and honestly, I want to try and convince more people to use him because I think he's fantastic. So let's just start this simple. How the heck does this character work? Well, first, he's a bow user who has standard attacks with bows that do stuff. Now you might be like, what do you mean stuff? Well, it's a really big pile of stats that do all sorts of things. I'm going to kind of read it, kind of explain what that means. So the normal attacks are just normal attacks. There's nothing special about his basic attacks in bow form. As for his charged attack, it's a charged shot, it applies Hydro, and applies a Riptide. Here's the thing, Riptide's like the whole point of Tartag. That's like 80% of what he does is he applies Riptide and makes it do damage. So applying Riptide can be broken, so to speak, in two ways, with this Riptide Flash or Riptide Burst. The Flash is if you aim shot them, it does a bunch of AoE damage. And the Burst is if you kill them, it just does a big burst of damage. That's the basics of his basic attacks. Now you can also eventually get to Sword of Torrents here, where when you're in melee stance, which I'll explain in a second, don't worry, I'm getting there. When you're in melee stance, crits deal Riptide, which is just nice. As for melee stance, wondering what the heck that means, well, his skill is unique. His skill is you pop it and then you change how you fight, which is why I do have this leveled a little bit so that I can use his charged attacks, but most of my leveling goes into this. And this is what I recommend you level first, honestly, because this is how he's going to be attacking the most. So it's Hydro damage that can't be overwritten. Let me show you exactly what that means. So, normal attacks, bow, charged attack, bow, but you press his skill, and you get daggers, which are a melee form, which also has like a polearm attack in there. I'm not going to worry about that too much. But the bottom line is he's melee. And because of that, he can trigger stuff with Riptide. So hitting an opponent affected by Riptide will unleash a Riptide Slash that deals Hydro damage. The bottom line is, once you pop his skill, you want him sitting on field for as long as possible. You can go all the way up to 30 seconds, but your max CD goes all the way up to 45 seconds because of that. So the longer you stay in this melee form, the longer your cooldown is for said melee form. So he only gets to stay on field for a certain amount of time, but when he's there, you just want to leave him out and be constantly attacking. Now, his burst will pop up, obviously, when he's constantly attacking. So he has two bursts, technically, because of ranged and melee. Ranged does a little bit less than melee, as far as base kits go, but melee, as it says, will trigger Riptide Blast, and the one triggered by the burst adds another 200%. So technically it's like, at level 9 here, like nearly 1,000% damage compared to the 650 for ranged, but ranged gives 20 energy back so you can spam it. And on top of that, we'll apply Riptide. So if you group all your enemies up and apply Riptide, swap to melee, and then burst it by just hitting them, it might be more efficient than just hitting a big burst for bigger damage, because you could deal more AoE damage by triggering these Riptide Slashes, right? As for his passives, Extending Riptide, I already talked about this. Kind of a slept-on one is that you increase your party members' normal attack levels by 1. It's just nice. You can make normal attacks go up to level 11 by this, but he doesn't super pair well with characters you want normal attacking because he wants to be on the field. But that's a general quick rundown of what the hell Riptide is, how his abilities work, and all that. As for like how to play that, you don't really want to ever be in bow form outside of like when you've already used all your other characters' abilities. Like I've used Zhongling's ability, I've used Kazuha's, I've used Bennett's, and now I might just sit in Tartag and attack, but you really just want to always be attacking with your melee form. It is by far the way he deals most of his damage. Artifacts. Very important thing for Tartaglia. But spoiler alert, I have one thing to say to you, and it's just use 4-piece Heart of Depth. Now, don't get me wrong, there are other options that can work. You can use your Tracing Bolide if you have solid shield users. You can use Shimenawa's to boost his normal attack by that 50% amount, but honestly, just use Heart of Depth. 15% Hydro damage, 30% normal and charged attack damage for 15 seconds. And most people consider this to be the maximum amount of time you want him to be out on the field anyways, because otherwise your cooldown gets insanely long. But the bottom line is, Heart of Depth is just by far one of his best sets. As for what to get on them, Elemental Mastery is okay. I wouldn't really recommend it, nor Energy Recharge. The reason I've kept this piece is because it has 28% crit damage. Elemental Mastery is fine, because of the way that works with Vaporize. Energy Recharge is okay, but he doesn't really need energy for his burst. He only has a 60 cost burst. It's not a huge deal. Same for the substats here. You might be like, these substats are kind of bad. Yeah, but the crit substats are really, really high. So even though this is double defense, it's 16% crit rate, which is just wonderful. You want to use an attack sans? I suppose in a pinch, if you could never get an attack sans, you could swap in EM, but just use attack. You just want an attack sans on him. Hydro damage Goblet, as is tradition, and then crit rate or damage Circlet, as is also tradition. It's very straightforward. You build him like a DPS, even though I consider him to be more of an on-field support. But honestly, just farm out Heart of Depth. That's your best bet to get stuff for him. It just synergizes so well with the way he wants to play that you just want Heart of Depth, first and foremost. Weapons. This is another kind of simple, kind of complicated one. So, if your stats are incredible and you got better artifacts than I have, which isn't very hard, mine are mostly okay. Hamayumi is pretty solid because of the normal attack and charge attack boost. And quite often you'll be sitting on full burst on Tartag, so it's not terrible. Rust is also pretty good because of similar reasons. Boosting your normal attack is nice. The Viridescent Hunt is good because it has high base attack and crit rate on it. Its passive is okay. You'll trigger it. It'll help group up enemies for you just like a little bit. But it's not insane. I wouldn't recommend refining this thing. I don't own it, but the Blackcliff Warbow is very, very good for him as well because of the same reasons of the Viridescent Hunt. Solid passive, high crit on its substat, and a high base attack. So depending on what you need, crit rate or crit damage, you can change up what bow you're using. I just use the Viridescent Hunt because I keep forgetting to buy the Blackcliff Warbow. I should really buy that instead. I have a much better crit rate circlet that rolled a ton of attack and a ton of crit damage on it, as opposed to this very okay crit damage circlet that just rolled defense all the way down. Made me sad, but it was crit damage and it was on set, so I couldn't say no. As for 5-star weapons, I don't own any, as you just saw, but of the ones that are in the game, Skyward Harp and Thundering Pulse are the two best, because they have passives that work with him, and they have crit substats. The Polar Star is launching with his Banners rerun, however, I don't know anything about it, because it's not out yet. From the looks of it, it's supposedly going to be a weapon for him, but proceed with caution. Sometimes the weapons aren't as good for the characters as they first appear to be. Not everything's going to be a Staff of Homo with Hu Tao, right? Teams. So like I've said, Tartaglia is an on-field supportive character. What does that mean? Well, characters that are really powerful DPS and can bring big damage, like Zhang Ling, pair phenomenally with him. So, because of the way that you want to be on field triggering these Riptide attacks, and because you have insane Hydro application, someone like Zhang Ling, whose Pyronado just spins around her the entire time, constantly vaporizing, is a wonderful, wonderful character to pair. This is one of my favorite team comps to run in the game, flat out. Zhang Ling and Tartag are incredible, and Bennett's here to help apply more Pyro, help provide additional energy for Zhang Ling, help provide a burst and 4-piece Noblesse, and Kazuha is here to shred protections and give buffs. This squad is one of my favorites. Now, you might be like, hang on. Kazuha is a 5-star. What if I don't have Kazuha? You can replace Kazuha. But you can replace Kazuha with any animo unit, honestly. I don't recommend, like, Zhao, honestly. But since they're here to provide VV Shred, you could replace Kazuha with someone like Sucrose, to also apply buffs, but in the forms of Elemental Mastery. You could replace with Jean, and then if you could swap out Bennett for a different Pyro unit, who's a better damage bringer. You could swap roles and have Jean be the one who's applying healing and shred. And swap out Bennett for, say, a different off-field Pyro character, who I can't think of any right now off the top of my head. But still, the idea stands. Personally, I just like Kazuha because I feel like he fits this squad best. And you might be like, hang on, why wouldn't you just use Venti? Isn't Venti just like the best character in the world? Venti's bad with Tartag. The way that Venti's burst can pull enemies off the floor actually makes it harder to melee attack them. So personally, I would actually stick Venti in a different squad if you happen to have Venti. I would highly recommend Kazuha or Sucrose as the top two, but someone like Jean can slot in just fine. Now, like I said, this is a huge Vaporize team, all about Zhang Ling vaporizing Tartag's Hydro procs for huge damage with Kazuha boosting and Bennett boosting as well. There's another great comp that is honestly only 3 units deep. And in my opinion, 3 units deep. It is the Taser team involving Fischl and Beidou. You might be like, why would you run this comp? What the heck? Tartag applies Hydro so fast that he will just constantly be spreading the Electrocharged everywhere, and making this just an AoE monstrosity of a team. And the 4th slot is quite open-ended. Because you have Electro Resonance already, that 4th slot can be any number of things. You could slot in someone like Barbara for healing. You could slot in another Electro, like, I've forgotten her name now, and I apologize to her. Like Kujo Sara. For more buffing, you could just shove Bennett in there for healing and buffing. You could shove an Animo unit like any of the Animo units that help, minus Venti, to help shred and group enemies. You could have someone like Diona there to freeze enemies as well as provide shielding and healing. You could shove in the Zhongli for more shielding. The bottom line is this core 3 is what's important for the comp. Because you just want a lot of off-field electro damage being applied through Beidou's burst and Fischl's Oz, and Tartag just be running around triggering electrocharged on everything. And the 4th unit is whatever you need to make these 3 work together. Those are, in my opinion, the 2 like big teams, the Super Vape team, as I like to call it, and the Taser team, as everyone else likes to call this one. Those are the best teams for Tartaglia, in my opinion. There are other teams that can work. Team wrong, and now I'm sad. I have to fix this. I apologize. We're doing this partially live, so you just get to see the flubs that I leave in. But those are, in my opinion, the 2 best teams. There are other teams that work great for Tartaglia. I'm sure you could find any number that work on your end, but those are just my recommendation. So that's the gist of it. That's Tartaglia in a quick little nutshell. This was probably a longer video than I thought, but I just wanted to make sure I got all my ideas out there and explained why I think Tartaglia is great. Because of the fact that he can just sit on field doing all this damage while you have amazing off-fielders like Zhang Ling and Kazuha or Fischl and Beidou, or any number of other off-field supports that you want to make great usage of. You can just throw Tartag onto the field while your other off-fielders are just doing their damage, and he can just be ripping things to shreds with Riptides and burst damage. I think he is not an underrated character, because I believe most people know how powerful he is, but I think he's honestly an underutilized character right now, because this current team comp is one of my comps that I always go after the Abyss with because of its just sheer consistency. And I will do a quick explanation as to why I like it, because you can apply Pyro with Bennett, Swirl with Kazuha, You get a Pyro buff. Pop Bennett Burst. As you can see, it's on cooldown, so I can't use it. Pop Zhengling Burst, so that Zhengling will have Bennett Burst, Noblesse Oblige, and Kazuha buff all applied. Then pop Kazuha's Burst while everything is running around trying to hit you, and then swap the Tartaglia and just hit everything till it dies, which is why I like this comp so much. And it's why I like Tartaglia so much. That's the type of style that he can provide. Everyone else does all their stuff, and then while all of their abilities are on cooldown or waiting around, he just sits on field and just burns through his stuff. Then you swap off of him and let him sit off field while his cooldowns come back. And it's a wonderful playstyle, and I love the way that he can swap between bow and melee form. I think it's a really interesting character design. So that'll be it for this video, though. So thanks for watching and hanging out, and I hope to catch you in the next one.